here in the U.S. Happy Memorial Day. Had a very, very busy weekend. A lot of cooking yesterday. Oh my goodness, we were cooking all day. And I didn't get home till like maybe 1 in the morning, so I'm a little bit tired, but I don't want to go back to sleep just yet. I want to just enjoy the day, the morning walk. Probably when I get home, I'm going to do a little bit of laundry because I did most of my cleaning Saturday morning and Saturday day before I left to go stay the night at my mom's. And, I want to also later on today do my hair a little bit and get dressed up and do my makeup and everything, do a little self-pampering for myself later on today. And I may do another stream, like a Bible study stream later on. If I have time, I hope I can pencil it in for about at least, even if it's for 30 or 40 minutes. But we'll see. Right now it's about when I looked at the temperature this morning, it was like 57. It was rainy. It still is a little bit of drizzles coming here and there going on right now, but it's not too bad as it was earlier. Hopefully it doesn't start to drench and rain, because if so, I'm gonna have to throw this other hoodie on me. And I could put it over me if I want to, like that, and keep my head covered. So there's a little bit of drizzle. So if I start wiping my phone, it's because I'm wiping the rain off. Take a nice morning walk. I need this. Oof. Hope to make this walk at least 35, 40 minutes at least around town, because I really need to, work up a good sweat. And I don't sweat very easily. But, I gotta get exercising and moving. So yeah, that's why I'm dressed up the way I am, because it is a bit chilly this morning. Go ahead, birdie. Bird's so cute. He's just sitting there looking at me. But yeah, definitely not going to be doing any cooking today, because I did all that cooking yesterday. So I'm taking a break today. I'm just going to be having some leftovers. And tomorrow I'll resume cooking, because I don't really like my husband going out to eat, to different places for 2 reasons. First, for health reasons. And also, I don't want to be spending all this money. I'm trying to save, So I don't know what's going to happen next year. I said this before. I'm waiting for that crash to happen. I'm hoping a crash really does happen, because that'll be the day that I really move in onto getting a house. Because right now, as everyone knows, it's the house market is doing terrible. It's bad right now. I'm taking the long way down because I want to make my walk very, very long here. Yeah, this morning I was listening to Cassandra Mack. You gotta look her up. She's a Christian woman, and she's very wise. She's a Christian life coach. I've mentioned about this many times before. And she speaks a lot about life situations and giving life advice from a biblical standpoint, which is really good. This morning, when I was listening to her video, there was something she mentioned about when you get like a strange or a weird vibe, when you sense a weird energy from somebody. And it got me thinking a lot about, discernment and relationships and different people that you meet in your lifetime. And I was able to relate a lot to that video in the sense of, I'm that type of person where I'm able to pick up or sense things about people automatically with no words explained. And I'm like, why do I feel off, or there's something about a particular person where I may just not feel comfortable sharing something with them about my life. And everybody else I could share that same thing with, but that one particular person, even if I was friends with them or cool with them, I have a guard up with them for whatever particular reason. Or something tells me don't tell this person too much of your life, even though they haven't shown me anything about themselves to make me not trust them. For a good example is my past friendship that I had. And I've mentioned about this friendship back many times, for about almost 13 years. I worked with them in my first job on the base. I was in a dining hall. And, where you're young, you don't really pick up a lot on things like you do when you're older. And I think as well, too, when you get older, you become a little bit more wiser. And when you grow in your relationship with Christ, you really are growing in true wisdom. And you learn to trust your discernment about things. You learn to trust what you're feeling about people and put it to the test. You don't just sit back and say, oh, I feel something bad about this person, but they haven't given me a reason to really not trust them. So that's just probably my thoughts. Maybe that's just my social anxiety or something. Or maybe that's what it is, stop thinking that, but no, maybe you really are feeling something real about them. That's not really good. That is either toxic or draining or chaotic. And you got to pay attention to those things. And I think when you're young, you tend to do that a lot, versus when you're older, you've been through things, you've been through certain experiences, you learned from your mistakes, and you're like, oh, I remember the last time I did that. And I would throw out all my discernment about people, right? And then it would end up biting me in the ass. So go back to, this friendship. I know that I was 20 years old when I first met this person, and they were my good friend, They were older than me too. And that was another thing I wanted to mention. They were older than me. But they were cool. You wouldn't be able to tell they were older than me because they look younger. And I remember, us two checking orders when the military men came in, because we did a variety of work there at this job. And one of the things you had to do was check IDs and orders. And that's how, I would sit next to that person. And I was young. I was just starting off in life. I had no idea about life situations. I'm going out there in the midst of wolves, just like everybody else, And the person came off very nice. And at first, we were talking and, talking about, the job. And then, you start conversating with someone and then you start getting personal. And I never really intended to really be friends with this person or hang out with them like that. Let me get around this tree. I didn't intend to really be friends with this person, but this person, after maybe 2 years of us hanging with each other and laughing and giggling, because we started realizing we had a lot of similarities in our characteristics. We both laugh a lot. We both, have a very great big imagination. We share a lot of similarities when it comes to the inner issues that we have, right? And I remember we used to draw pictures of things and make jokes out of stuff on the cash register, when we were going and taking in the military men and their orders and everything. And it came to a point where she wanted to start hanging out with me personally. And I remember when she had asked me, something pricked my heart because I've always been that way. For one, I was very socially anxious. Not that I wouldn't give you a chance, but it always gave me anxiety to just open up to people. But then I overlooked the idea that, hey, maybe it's not just my anxiety. It's probably also too because I didn't know this person and they were just so sudden, even after 2 years of just talking to me, hey, let's hang out, let's go out to dinner or something. And I'm like, well, why do we got to hang out personally outside of work? I was very nervous about it. And I really didn't want any friends because I'm the type of person that I just don't feel the need to just make friends just to make them. There has to be a very strong alignment between me and that person. But I was young and I was just more open to things than I am now. And I remember us hanging out and, over the years, it's like a big puddle here. Let me go this way. Hi, puppy. Hi, baby. Ruff, ruff. Ruff, ruff, ruff. Hi. Hi. Oh, they're both fighting. No fighting. Hey. Hi, puppy. Cute puppy dogs. One of them growled at the other one when he came over. I guess, he was like, I want the attention first. You know how they are. So, yeah, back to saying, so I, over time started hanging out with her and getting closer to her. And we started seeing a lot of similarities in our chemistry, the things that we like, our hobbies. We were both into music. We were all into writing and a lot of different things, right? And automatically, the first thing we always think is, oh, we are so alike, Our personalities are alike. We both have the same sense of humor. We both have like the same problems, right? Relating on our issues, right? Relating on our chemistry. But one thing that we did not relate on was our spirits. We weren't spiritually aligned. You know what I mean? And see, at the time, I was still young, baby Christian, still in the world, still growing, still out there doing things that is very worldly, right? And I didn't really tell her that part of myself too much. And I mean, I told her a few times I was a child of God, like I was Christian, but I don't think that she took me serious. I just think most people hear that and they think, oh, she grew up in the church or something. And that wasn't even the case with me. But she just really did not know that I had the knowing of who God is, And a lot of times when you are not walking in Christ, you're not identifying with him, you're identifying with the world, people don't see Christ. They see a light about you, but they just don't know what that light is. So, they're just automatically assuming you're just a very bright person, very overly positive person, happy-go-lucky. I remember a boss saying that to me one time. And everyone kept saying, what's your secret? Why you're always so happy and so joyous? Even though I'm not always happy, I always have my bad days too, but God is the one that brings me joy. And there was only one believer that said, I know who it is no secret. And so a lot of people couldn't sense that. And I didn't always openly tell people that, hey, it's God who brings me my happiness all the time. Well, she was one of those people, and that I did not really open up really deep about my relationship and faith with the Lord. And all of our conversations was worldly based, her problems in her relationships, her issues at work, things that you see on TV, everything that's here in this life, but nothing really about God and the truth about Jesus Christ. And over the years, it did bother my conscience, and it did really bother me. Every time when I would drop her off, I would be in my car and I would be feeling a sense of terrible guilt because I did not tell her about Christ. It would bother me. There was a day I cried, and I was with a friend of mine's, and I was talking to him on the phone, and I was crying. I said, I know the truth, and I did not tell her. And that was back in 2017. Nobody knew that. Nobody knew that was bothering me. Nobody did. Only a few people, like that, the one guy that was my friend. And I told him, I said, This is breaking me. It's because I know the truth that Jesus is the truth, life, and the way. I know what's going on with her. That's a spiritual attack that's going on in her life. I know that where she's going to head to if she don't believe on the Lord. And this is my friend. So every time we hanged out, we would just talk about things that's in the world. And at the time, I was doing a lot of singing. She knew that I had a very deep anxiety about singing publicly. And, she would push me and be like, you gotta get out there and sing, right? And I have no problem with somebody encouraging me to do stuff, to go out and live my life and pursue my dreams and goals, right? But at the end of the day, you got to respect my decision. You have to respect my stance on things, where my heart is. So, I said, I don't know. And I always kept telling her, I'm not sure right now. It's just something I do as a hobby. Maybe someday, I'll do something with my singing and music. I don't know, it got to the point where she started to, I would say, maybe start forming these imaginations and dreams of me being bigger than what I am. And she started thinking like, you're going to be a singer. Yeah, my friend, she's going to be a singer. Yep. I'm going to be, she's going to be this and that. And I maybe I'll be this and this and this and that. And I'll just be laughing like, hey, I don't know. You know what I mean? So maybe, we'll see what happens. Right. And I said, I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to sing or perform on stage without ever really having anxiety like that. And I don't think they'll ever go away about me. And I said, maybe if I would have to do something like on private level with music, maybe sell music if I ever get to the top there, I said, but it depends. It depends on what's going to happen in the future. I don't know. It got to the point where she started like, almost like she was like living through my lens, living life through others, and why I say that is because she had another friend who was a musician and he was good. I actually have a video, I think, of me singing with him. If I can find it, I may put it up, but I was singing with him. And she had these visions and dreams through him. And I said, well, is that what he wants, is to be a singer and be out there on the radio and stuff? Maybe that's not what he wants, right? Maybe he just does this as a hobby. I made the song for him and he sings it so well. And I sang that same song because, we did it for fun, not to really just be out there putting the music out there like that. So one day she found out that he didn't want to do this anymore. He says, I really don't want to do this. He told her the truth. He says, I really don't want to do this. I just do this as a hobby, right? She got so angry. She called my phone. She was upset. She says, I cannot believe he did this. He let me down. I'm disappointed. And what's the one thing I asked her? I said, did he ever ask you to do those things for him, or you just took it upon yourself? And every time I kept asking her that question, she kept going over my question, but kept complaining. So I said that answered my question. This is what I'm talking. This is where I'm getting at with the whole thing that I heard earlier about discernment with people, about how to discern things out, even when there's nothing directly said. You can almost feel somebody out and be able to know like something is not right, or they're hiding something, or there's some inner issues about themselves that hasn't been manifested yet. So I know that she started resenting him. And one day this friend of hers worked hard. He had health issues. She always used to tell me all the time, Candace, he works so hard. He busts his tail, takes care of his brother who's a bum. I feel so bad for him. I really hope and pray that some things get better for him. Well, let me tell you, he hits into 30 grand on a lottery. And one day I was going to hang out with her. Now, this is supposed to be her friend of I don't know how long, longer than me. That son of a bitch, he got 30 grand, I fucking pissed off with him. I'm like, my eyes just dropped. And I'm like, what? Like, wait, hold up here. I thought you said you loved this guy. This is your friend. and that you want best for him. Well, he didn't give me a cut. And I said, do you think I'm wrong for that? And I said, well, here's the thing. I feel like if you run into money, this is my saying. People act funny when you run into what money, okay? So you shouldn't tell anybody when you run into money. So I felt like it was unwise of him to do that, which I told her. I said, I feel like if he wasn't going to give anything to anybody, I just think he should have just kept it to himself. But even if he did it, me being a friend I would never want to do something like that. If my friend ran to 30 grand, I wouldn't be thinking about myself. I'd want her to get her house and get herself together. I don't want to cut me a piece of money. I mean, if she does that, that's nice. It's thoughtful. I said, if it was us and we had money, I probably would give my friend money, but I don't know that person's circumstances. Is, I said, do you know he has health issues? He has bills and stuff. He's trying to get a house. Why are you mad at him? And she one day exposed to me that she gets jealous when she sees people have more money or materialistic things than her, or either they work on their weight because she wasn't fat or nothing, but she just for some reason felt like she wasn't skinny. And, she was very insecure about herself. And I used to always tell her she's a very natural, good-looking woman, and I don't understand why, she feels the need to be thinner than what she is. But she would get jealous if she sees anybody else losing weight. And that included my friend, which she personally attacked in a passive-aggressive way and hid it from me. I didn't find out until after our friendship was over, because my friend, who she came after, didn't want to tell me. She was like, I didn't want to ruin your relationship, so I didn't want to say anything to you that your friend had said that to me. And I was very upset. So then back to the guy. So, after that made me question things. Because, see, I was getting a little bit older then. And I said, I don't know about this, my friend. And she's started to show a lot of toxicity about herself that I don't like. But I didn't just cut her off because of that reason. I don't cut people off unless there's got to be a real good reason. Like, you have to show me something so evil about yourself, or something that shows me you are not my friend. You are against me. You're my enemy. You don't love me. You don't care about me. You cross my boundaries, and you love the fact of deflowering me, means ruining me, ruining my innocence, anything that is good about me. I want to get rid of you. So she, at the time, I was like, she's my friend, and we all have issues, right? Then it got to a point where I told her I didn't really want to pursue music like that. I said, I don't really know for sure, because it's every time I talked to her, it was almost like she was forming this vision. You're going to be a singer. You're going to be this and that. And I said, well, I don't know if that's what's going to happen. I don't really know, because I don't know if I'm going to have children. I don't know what's going to happen with me and my husband. I may not even be here in the States. I may move out and stuff, right? And I told her I didn't want to sing anymore, because it got to a point where I just felt too much pressure, and it was stressing me out, and it was overwhelming me and giving me anxiety. And I just didn't feel like doing that all the time, right? Well, when I said that to her, she started becoming very resentful. She started, she didn't like that. And she was used to me being, and that's another thing, I was a very passive yes person. I didn't set boundaries for myself. Look at my hair, it's getting all curly from the rain. See, and water, it makes my hair get all frizzy to Afro state. She started becoming passive aggressive towards me. When people say things to throw dabs at you, but it's under their breath, and they hope you don't catch on to it. And when you do, they try to act like they don't know what they said or did. So I knew where she was trying to play, so I would ignore her. And she would do things like that to get under my skin. And when it wasn't working, it seemed like it was getting on her nerves, right? Because they expect a reaction out of you. Then I told her, I said, honestly, I want to kind of start practicing piano, which, that's around the time that I started getting Mr. Yon to help me, because that was just something I wanted to learn, right? And I wanted to practice the piano. I don't know where she's practicing guitar, and out of nowhere she wants to switch over to practicing piano with me. I'm like, okay. I said, she never ever really was into the piano. All of a sudden she wants to practice piano because I'm doing it. Okay, never mind. Yeah, we can make music together and we can do this. Everything I started wanting to do, she wanted to be included, and was almost like she was trying to live vicariously through someone. You know what I mean? And it started to bother me like, okay, all right, you're switching over to piano because why? Because I'm doing it. Then I told her I'm thinking about doing nursing, right? And then she was like, I got an idea. I said, what? I said, well, we can open up a herbalist, like natural doctor shop, and I can be the natural herbalist. You know how they have those like herbalist doctors that do everything natural, and you could be the nurse or whatever, and we could work together. And it was like, it started becoming to where she was living vicariously through me, and it was like everything I wanted to do, she felt like this needs to be a part of it. And I'm like, oh boy, like this bothers me, because it's like, how is she going to be able to deal with if one day I move away and let's say I move to another state, right? And I want to start a family and everything. You're going to get mad. So one day she calls me. She was upset about another person that lived down the street from her. That was her neighbor. And she hanged out with her, smile on her face, everything. Hey, how you doing? Behind her back, one day I came to the backyard. She says, Candace, I'm fucking pissed off. I said, what happened? That bitch. I was like, who? What? And she told me the neighbor's name, and I'm sitting there shocked. Well, that woman run into money. She's collecting alimony. I can't believe she's collecting alimony, and she's also getting money for COVID, because during that time was COVID, right? And I'm sitting there looking at her like, wait, you're supposed to be her friend. And that's when I really started saying, okay, this is like the second time I hear wishing death or anger on somebody because they got something, or, they're not happy. First of all, that woman's entitled. I said something. I said, well, first of all, I said, she's married, and I don't care. Like, okay, if you're sitting there doing that, I'm not going to agree with you just because you're my friend. I might be passive, but you thought wrong. You don't think that because I'm passive, I'm going to sit there and go along with your evil deeds. So I said, no, I feel like reporting her, but I'm not going to. I really do. And I'm like, I said, well, that's her money she's entitled to. That's alimony because that belongs to her, right? That's her husband. Well, I don't understand why, she's collecting, during COVID. And that really bothered me after that. And then we went over to that neighbor's house. It really bothered me sitting there knowing that she was saying these things, smiling in her face. And I'm sitting there like, looking at my friend differently. But she was my friend, so again, I didn't want to cut her off so fast. I was like, maybe, she's going through something, making excuses like, we've been friends for so long. I mean, maybe she got a point. I'm just making excuses for her, right? But I knew deep down that there's something not right. And before she started showing this to me when I was younger, something told me don't tell her too much about the YouTube channel, right? And I'm glad I didn't. Because if I did, she would have access to my life still. And she would know my whereabouts. Because even though people around the world don't know where I'm at. But her, let's say I'm sitting at a restaurant and there's a sign behind me that she's familiar with. She's going to know what restaurant I'm at. Even though there's no logo or like an address on it, she's familiar with the restaurants around here. So I don't want her to know where I'm at. So I'm glad I never told her my YouTube channel, because for those reasons, like I don't want her to know my whereabouts. I don't want her in my business because she seems like she's impeding in everything I'm doing. And I don't like that. So, you know what I mean? And some of the things I have to say, it's probably going to offend her, because some of the things I talk about is very offensive because it's nothing but truth. And it makes people question themselves. That's just the truth, So I'm glad I never gave her my YouTube channel. I never told her. Something told me all those years, even though she was friendly with me and smiled in my face, it says, something told me don't tell her. And I didn't know why. And the whole thing with her going mentally ill back in 2017 was part of it, because I know she was having a lot of stuff going on, but something else told me don't tell her. Do not tell her, because she will try to involve herself in everything you do, and she will impede, and she's going to want to, be a part of everything you do. And the thing is this, she's already acting like that towards me. How much worse? So her, back to the friend thing. So she did that to her friend. I'm starting to get hot. She goes, since we're friends, laughing with her, yeah, girl, da, 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 yeah, blah, blah, blah. Oh, really? Wow, that's a shame that he did that to you. What an asshole. And she's telling her, the neighbor's telling her all of her business. And I'm sitting there looking like, wow, how can I trust this person? So then I see, this is what I mean by discernment. And that's why that conversation I heard earlier with Cassandra Mack got me back to thinking about that. Because I said, it's weird how I felt this urge to never share too much with her, like on a personal level, like in my house. I never really let her visit my house. And her mother always just said, why don't you ever go to Candace's house? And because Candace don't let her in my house. No matter how friendly and how close we were, I would not let her in my house too much. There was only 2 times she came. I didn't want her knowing too much about my husband and me, what we do on a personal level. I stopped sharing a lot of things with her and a lot of my problems with her after a while. But even before that, I wouldn't let her see too much of our personal life. And on top of that, I would not let her in on too much of like what I do, like on YouTube or my hobbies outside of what I let her know. I already let her know I sing. And I said, well, imagine like if she's acting like this now, what other things she's going to do? So, and it's weird because I known her for 13 years and I thought I knew her, but then I realized I didn't know her as much as I thought. And that's because I didn't set boundaries so soon. When I started setting boundaries is when she started showing more and more of who she really is, and the mask started falling off. And that's what I'm talking about, discernment, where you can feel something or something tells you something that gives you a feeling about somebody, but you don't know why you're getting that feeling, and it's just so sudden. And a lot of times we tend to brush it off. And that's what I was doing for all those years before she started showing those qualities about herself. Like me not wanting to like let her in on everything about my personal life. Something told me, don't let her in, you know? Heck, my coworker has access to my YouTube channel, but I would never let her have it. And I said, why is it I feel this like, when it comes to sharing certain things with her? Now I know why. And so it's weird how discernment works and how like you could feel things about people ahead of time before it manifests. A lot of times we tend to not want to believe it or we want to fight against it. We don't want to believe that this person is out to have issues with me. And a lot of times they're not even self-aware about themselves. So they don't understand maybe why, somebody would want to push them away and not want to let them in on everything in their life. So I saw these qualities about her. And then I remember her wishing death on her sister-in-law. She was very jealous of her sister-in-law. And her sister-in-law got a car from her husband. She said, I hope she dies. And I was like, ooh. I said, okay, now this is getting serious. I said, that's his wife. And this is how I feel about it. I said, I feel like, that's his right to do what he wants to do for his wife. Why can't she have a laptop and why can't she have a car from her husband? That fucking bitch. He buys her a fucking car. And I'm like sitting there like, oh my gosh, like, she's showing me the most like evil side to herself. Then I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I could see the jealousy and rage coming out of her. Her sister-in-law is going to Disney. And then one day her and her mother accused her of cheating, right? When she went out to Disney to be a runner. She used to do the laps and she took pictures. And she's like, yeah, while my brother works 3 jobs, she sits there and works her job and gets to save. Well, that's what her husband wants to do for her. And I stuck up for her sister-in-law. I said something. I said, first of all, that's her husband and he's allowed to do what he wants. I said, and I think you and your mother crossed the line. And she didn't like that. I said, yeah, I said, yeah, your mother crossed the line. I said, that's crossing the line. That's not okay. You want to sit here and tell me that and think I will side with you on that? No. And says, I said, that's their business and that's their life. And you guys are crossing the line. Well, it wasn't me. It was my mom. She put me into it. The point is you put that thoughts in her head that your sister-in-law's cheating now on her son. That's why she's on the phone saying these things. And you guys are crossing the line. So I knew that. So it was like she would try to she would do things to make it seem like she don't know why people are mad at her or why this is happening around her. And, but she's the one that's orchestrating this. So I knew that. And I said, yeah, I know this. So over years, I started getting more setting boundaries with her. I used to be an on-the-go person. with her all the time back in the days when I was younger, and she had more, I think she had more control of me because I was younger. But as I got older, she couldn't control me. Like she couldn't get me to just say yes to everything so easily. And I was more outspoken. So she, I'm gonna walk around again. I'm trying to think, do I want to go down the street? I guess we'll go around the street. I'm gonna go this way again. She, one day had asked me, hey, Candace, you know, let's go out to, you know, to this free concert that's down in Wildwood, right? So I said, sure. What time you want to go? 4 o'clock. Okay. Back then I would just, you know, she'll be like, hey, can you leave now? Yeah, we got to get there and stuff. And I would just be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go. And then as I got older, I said, no, Candace, stop doing that for her. Do not do that. So I got home from work because, you know, I was working at my second job that I still am currently at now on the military base. I come home, I'm cooking for a hubby. And I think it was on a Sunday because Sundays are my rest days. So I started telling her that too, because I said Sundays are my rest days. So I'm not going to hang out on those days. We're going to do another day. But I was an exception because of the concert. It's 2 o'clock. It's not even 4 o'clock yet. I'm sitting there cooking something for my husband. She says, oh yeah, can you leave now? Because I want to get there early. I heard they're there early now. So I want to get there. I said, well, it doesn't start till 4, right? Yeah, but I want to leave now. I said, well, I'm cooking for my husband. So I said, I'm not going to leave right now. You can't just cook in another day. I said, no. I said, I got to leave at 4. I said, I'm cooking for him. So, you know, I just got home from work. So we got to wait. Well, she was not happy. And so she didn't like the boundaries I started setting up. She didn't like my growth as a person, growing as her own person, becoming more confident, you know, setting more boundaries. And it started to like get in her way. It was like a threat to her. So then, you know, she knows that me and my husband had our issues in the past. And this is, you know, before when I used to open up to her about like a lot of things about my life, before I even started YouTube. And I told her, you know, about my husband, you know, things that he gets on my nerves with and things like that, right? Like every other married couple. So it wasn't the best thing to complain to her. That was very unwise of me, but that's not the point I'm going across here. My point is that when things started to get a little better between me and hubby, like, you know, we got over our little phase or whatever like that. And there was a period where he wasn't working, you know, and I was very stressed out. She knew about that. And she's like, you deserve better. You should leave him. He's not going to take care of you. And I said, I will never leave my husband. Right. So, you know, she just couldn't understand that. I said, I just don't go leaving somebody just because they don't got a job. I don't believe in that. First of all, I don't believe in divorce. So I can't just divorce my husband, you know? So she, when she said, oh, you deserve better. I hope things go well for you. Well, guess what? My husband got a job. This is in 2022. And you would think a real friend, right, would have been like, I'm so happy for you. I pray and hope that things work well in this job. I'm so glad. Her first reaction is, oh, well, I hope he will. Hopefully he keeps this one, you know. Yeah, you may not even keep it. Da, da, da. It was like she was trying to plant seeds of doubt in my head. And I didn't let her get away with that. I was like, no, he's going to keep it this time. I said, the Lord blessed us. And I say, he's going to keep it. Because this is when I started opening up more about my relationship with God. Hello, hi. I started opening up with my relationship more with God in that time with her. And that's where she started getting really, really strange. So I said, no, he's going to be fine because God blessed us and he's going to keep this job. He's going to be fine. You know, we're going to be fine. I trust God. Right? And he's been on that job since 2022. Now, things can happen. Stuff happens. But what I'm trying to say is that she was just putting seeds of doubt to make me think he's going to lose his job in no time. No, he's going to be fine. So When I said that, she didn't like my faith. She didn't like my confidence. She didn't like the idea that she couldn't plant the seed of doubt in me. And one day she was asking about, hey, maybe in the future, you ever thought of moving in with each other? I said, well, I can't. I have a husband. So why would I move in with you? I said, I have a husband, and that just wouldn't work. No, I'm just saying, if something happens between you and your husband, well, we're not going to split up. So that's like not even something we should be thinking about. I said, not that, but you wouldn't want to live with me. You don't know me like that. Truly, you've never lived with me to say that things are going to work with me and you, because it wouldn't. She would not like me if she lived with me, because she wouldn't like the idea that she couldn't control what she wants to control. You know, I told her, no, you're not going to like me very much. You may like me maybe as a hangout buddy, friend, but not living with me. Right? Then one day I go to sit down at Friendly's. I will never forget. She seems so disappointed too. And she says, you know, I told her, I said, I love my husband. I would never leave him, right? Because I forgot what got us in the conversation about it. I think she asked me. And she was like, you'll never leave your husband? Really? I said, no. Why would I leave my husband? I love my husband. I love him to death. That's my baby. I said, you know, I don't care what, like I've said this many times before. There's something that'll ever change. I don't care if he had a prosthetic penis, okay? I love my husband, okay? That is my baby, you know, and I love him dearly. And I don't need to have sex with him. I don't need to do anything with him. I will always be there for my husband. I don't care. Even like, you know, if for whatever reason he wanted to leave me, you know, for one, the Bible states that I am to remain unmarried. He didn't cheat on me. And even if he did, I don't want to move on with anyone else. I want to stay a celibate person. And I love my husband. He is my family. He's my baby. You know, I have a very nurturing love for my husband, not just a wifely love, you know, or a love where I'm in romance. That's dead now. Now I have a sacrificial love for my husband. I love him very much, and I will take care of him. You know, if he was bedbound, I would be taking care of him and taking everything as I did before. I won't leave my husband. I made that clear. So I don't care what he does to me. You know, that is my husband. I love him. You know, if he, let's say he falls in love with another woman, I would be hurt, but I will always love my husband. You know what I mean? I would let him be free. I would be hurt if he sat there and cheated on me and sinned like that, but I wouldn't just move on like that. I would really love him and take care, be his best friend. That's how much I love my husband. I will always have his back. You know? I mean, you know, she knew that. She saw the love for my husband and she really was jealous of it. Like, you know, I'm like, I love my husband. You know, if he would always be my friend, I don't care what happens. That's somebody that I'm going to always be by their side and die. I mean, literally, when I was younger, before I got married to him, some guy tried to take rocks and throw it at my husband. Because, you know, you got like a lot of young dudes, 18, 19-year-old that want to bully people and beat people up. Guess what? Another thing came out of me. I said, he thought, oh, he's with this one skinny little girl, you know, this woman, she's not going to do nothing. I got up. I took those drops. Motherfucker! The whole 9 yards came out of me. I said, just come over here and hit me with a rock. Come on. I said, I'll kill you. Get over here. And I took the rocks. I was ready to come and beat the living daylights out of these dudes. And my husband was trying to stop me. He's like, hey, let's go. No, motherfucker, come here. The Brooklyn came out of me. This is going back before we got married. And those guys, I'm sorry. They saw a dangerous spirit come out of me. I was like, don't mess around with my husband. It's like messing around with a cub, you know, like you're messing around with my baby. So I went off. I was ready to hurt somebody. That day, I took a rock, was going to violently beat them. I mean, it was bad. So I was not happy. I said, "Come over here!" And then they just ran. They ran. The 5 dudes. So she knows this. She knew how much I loved my husband. I was like, that ain't even a question. You shouldn't even ask me that, right? So she seemed so disappointed. So disappointed, like upset, like, you know, and jealous at the same time. So she knows that there days I come home, I'm tired, I'm cooking for my husband, you know, doing what I'm supposed to do for him. And I was sick around the time. I didn't know if I had COVID or not, but I did. I was like, I ain't taking that vaccine, so I'll just deal with what I have. I didn't even get tested. 3 days later, I felt better. So I think it was probably a little mini flu. But at the time, I was so sick. She calls me up to waste my time, complain about something on the job that it refuses to fix. And I gave her some friendly advice, and it was more like she didn't want to accept it. She just wanted to go over what my advice was and keep talking. So I said, look, you just need to tell the person there that, hey, please be patient with me. You know what I'm just not going to go back to work there. I said, then why even waste my time complaining about it? You don't want to take my advice, right? So we get up to Burger King at the time because I was like, I'm tired. I don't feel like cooking. I ain't going to cook tonight. Well, you shouldn't have to cook for your husband. And I said, I was like, well, hold up here. Oh, hold up. Well, my husband's sitting right next to me too, while she's on speaker. I said, well, hold up here. I said, Matthew, baby, can you give me a Whopper Jr.? I always get a Whopper Jr. with no onion. And I said, actually, and I corrected her real quick. I said, actually, it's not that I don't mind cooking for my husband. It's because I'm sick. I actually like and enjoy cooking for my husband. And then she was like, you know what? I'm going to go. I'm like, you don't have to go. I think you two are busy. You know. I'm like, no, you're fine. You can stay on the phone with me. That's fine. I said, oh, no, I'm going to go. So she hangs up. And I said, oh, so we weren't too busy for you when you wanted to complain and run your ears off to me and not take my advice. But when I told you, no, I love cooking for my husband. Now you got a problem? Because I made you look bad because I told you as it is. You didn't like it. So then she gets off the phone. So I said, that's okay. Let her be petty. So I said, no, you're not going to do that to me, So she didn't like that. She didn't like the part of me where I was growing. I was becoming more confident. And I started telling her truths about herself she didn't like. One day she wanted to complain about men and men screwed me over and every guy I've been with. And I said, well, maybe you're the problem. Maybe you open it up too easily. I said, well, they don't do what they do for the other woman. The other woman, that man gave her a house and a mansion. I said, well, what did she do for him? Well, she got married to him and had kids. Well, that's why. You can't expect you can't expect things that married people get but don't want to get married. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, if there's someone that's nice enough to do that, that's fine. But you're expecting a man to sit here and give you everything that he would give a married woman, but you don't want to marry him. That's quite selfish. And she was mad at me and she was sitting back bickering with me. And I'm not a controversial person. I hate drama, I hate conflict. But when I feel like something needs to be said, and I'm letting my last straw and I say, okay, I'm going to have to tell her the truth because she keeps doing this over and over again. So she got mad. And then, you know what she said after the end of the conversation? She said, you know what, you made me realize my own selfishness. She didn't like that. She did not like that I made her see herself. But my whole thing is, I didn't see all of that coming until I set boundaries with her. But even before I set boundaries with her, I had a weirdness. Like something that told me don't let her in on everything. And even though I was telling her things, I always look back and say, maybe I shouldn't have not told her too much. I had a feeling. Something told me something that was an odd feeling that made me say, maybe you shouldn't tell her too much. And when I got YouTube, I didn't tell her. Something told me, do not tell her. Whatever you do not tell her about your page because she's going to know your whereabouts, right? Like something told me, don't tell her. And now years later go, and I'm not a friend anymore. And now I understand why. That's how discernment works. It's just very sudden. And you get a feeling about a particular person or thing or situation. And you may not know why you're feeling what you're feeling about that person, even when they don't show signs. You feel something in their spirit that warns you. Watch her. That's it. Or watch him. You may not know why you're feeling that, but you got to kind of ask God to reveal those things and help you discern out what it is that you need to watch for. And I've already told you this story. I've already told everyone this story about how it ended. Because, it just got it just got to the point where she was becoming very passive aggressive. And I started getting convicted. And I think it was 2021. Now is the month where my other friend got attacked by a spirit, demonic. And I was there to witness a lot of that. But that, to me, was a wake-up call. My father was a witness to that. And his friends had a hard time believing it. Him, me, her daughter, and her Buddhist boyfriend. He couldn't even deny what he saw. And that was in 2021. And around that time, that was a wake-up call to me. I said, this is God's wake-up call, man. My friend that was scary. And when I called my friend of 13 years to tell her all this stuff, it was like she just brushed it under the rug. Why are you always there trying to, that's not your problem. Shouldn't be there. Instead of saying, Candace, I'm concerned for her. But you know what? Because she's an unbeliever and she don't align spiritually with me, she sees things differently. A matter of fact, she's okay with witchcraft. And that was another thing about her. She was into, she believed in like spirituality and witchcraft, and she says she stopped witchcraft, but I don't believe her. Okay. She said I remember at one time she went to a fortune teller. The first time I was younger and I didn't know how to tell her, no, don't go in there. I was younger then, but it bothered me in my early 20s. When I got to my later 20s, I stopped her. I mean, most people say, well, you can't stop somebody from something. I can't, but I am not, as your friend. I know the truth. And I looked and I said, no, don't go in there. And she was like, why? I said, it opens doors to demons. And she seemed annoyed because it was like I would not let her go. And I walked past her. I said, Leah, let's go now. I started walking. She didn't like it. I said, because you're opening doors to demons. And she thinks it's okay. She was getting attacked by spirits and had stuff coming at her too. But yet she still wanted to engage in the spirits, in the spiritual realm. And it's like, I don't understand why you want to keep opening up to these things when I told you over and over again, they're not good spirits. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. I would open up a can of worms, a whole nother story that will blow people's minds. But on the flip note, she find these things intriguing. And she don't care, she didn't seem to care that my friend of 20 years that I've known since I was 16 is being attacked by spirits and in front of our midst and all this crazy stuff happening and stuff. I mean, it was horrible. The strength that my friend had, the one of 20 years, was so strong. She was able to lift up her military boyfriend. I saw this and with my own plain eyes and pin him into a wall. And it was crazy. I mean, there was so much that happened that night. That was so disturbing. And like I said, 4 witnesses. Okay. And, I mean, after that, my friend of 20 years thought I would never see her again. She says, I thought you weren't going to never see me again after this happened to me. She didn't even know it happened until I told her. And she had PTSD from that. She was like, she didn't think that I would talk to her again. I said, no, why? I know where your heart is. It's, your heart is in the right place. You at least believe in God. You're seeking God, but she was like right then and there. She really started taking things serious. And now she reads the Bible a lot more now, She's the one that got me the pink Bible. And, she's grown in her relationship with God over these past years very strongly. Like she's gotten really much deeper in her relationship with God, especially after that. That was really bad. But my 13 years I cut off, she just seemed like she just took it for a joke, or she just seemed very like narcissistic, her attitude about it. And, I just, at that point, I just said, whatever, I ain't got time for this. I started talking more about Christ to her because in 2021, I started making a video for Facebook and YouTube and opening up about the truth that I've always known since I was a little girl. I knew God was true. And then I at least would say I have confirmed my salvation with the Lord when I was 17. Was I perfect? No. Am I still imperfect? No. I'll never be perfect. I do sin. I do misbehave and do things. But see, at one point, I wasn't as deep in my relationship with God as I am now. So it would be harder for people to see that I was a child of God. They just saw a light, that something was different about me, but they just didn't know what it was. People always used to say that. But back to what I'm saying is she started hearing me talk more about God because it was convicting me that she was my friend this long and I didn't tell her about Christ enough. I didn't tell her that he was the truth, life, and the way. She was like, one day she tried to say, hey, let's go to this fun church, where they fun and they dance and stuff. And I looked at her and I said, no, we're not going to no church. And she looked at me like, well, why not? Why do you want to go there? I said, well, because not every church is of God. And you already know what I say about these churches because they're all false. And what does dancing and having fun and making a fool of yourself have to do with Christ? Where's the salvation message of Jesus in there? Where is the message of that? We are a dying world, and we need Christ in our life, and that we're on our way to a place of eternal torment, eternal separation from God. Where's that message at? No, they want to sit here play games, take tithing and money from you, and don't tell you about Jesus. Don't tell you scriptures that are very inspiring and something that makes you read and really get a wake-up call to, something that brings stuff to light. Nothing like that. She just wants to go to church because she hears there's dancing in there. That ain't gonna bring you to Christ. So, as time went on, she started realizing this Candace is serious. She's opening up to me. She told me all these years that she's always known Jesus was real, that he was real in a sense of who he says he is. Everybody knows Jesus existed, but they may not accept who he is. So I said, Jesus is God. He came here. He died on the cross for our sins. And I told her about the fact that we are living this sinful life. And I'm trying to pull away from a lot of things. You know what I mean? As much as I can. Things that I feel is going to distract me, or things that are of the devil that I might have been gay. You know what I mean? We all come to our own convictions at our own times. So, even that included the holidays. Like Halloween was not one of them. So when I stopped celebrating Halloween, it was like, she didn't like that. So this is what made me cut her off, right? Before she started getting very strange and resenting me and didn't like my changes and my growth in the Lord, I started feeling something around her. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like something suddenly came to my spirit and it disturbed me and it irritated me. And I was around her. She was like smiling. Hey, Candace, how you doing and stuff? Let's go hang out. We're going out, going to a concert. But we went to a concert and I was sitting down and I felt her staring at me. I don't know. I mean, I was the strangest thing. I don't know why I felt that, but it was like I felt irritation, anger, resentment. And this is what I started telling her more about Christ, about God. And I felt that from her. And I said, what is going on here? Is it just me? Or I should take heed and warning, as I should have always taken heed and warning when I get this sign and sudden feeling from somebody. So I didn't want to ignore it. So I said, let me just keep on guard, right? So that night, I remember there was a white girl who was really fat, very pretty girl. And she was dancing in the front. She liked the singer of the band. And I went up there to dance, right? I come back, I tell her, I said, hey, everyone is up there dancing, right? And I told her, the one girl said, she knows that she's neighbors with the guy in the band there, right? And she said, who? She seemed irritated, like not even like there was nothing that happened that made that would make me say, okay, she's irritated. She was sitting down. She just seemed irritated out of nowhere. I said, the girl up there, she told me she's neighbors with the guy that's on the band. And she was saying, I had no idea about that. So she gets angry. Who? Right? She's getting angry. And it is funny that I felt that about her before it manifested. Isn't that crazy? And she didn't show me any signs of anger. She didn't show me, like, she came in, she was happy. She's like, yeah, we're coming in and da-da-da-da. And it just felt like a sudden anger and a spirit of evil was behind her. And I could feel it in her voice out of nowhere. And I said, it's so weird. I felt that she was staring at me and the anger. And now she's like out of nowhere, just like showing another side to herself. It was so weird. And this is what they talk about when it comes to discernment. And that manifested. So I'm just like, why is she so angry? So I felt like a variety of reasons. I felt already she was annoyed with me because she don't like my growth. She doesn't like who I am anymore. She loved who I was and what I used to identify with. And she didn't like who I became because she cannot feel comfortable in her lifestyle and the things that she does. But every time she comes near me, she's got to always have a mirror to her face, even if I'm not trying to. A mirror of her questioning her walk, what she's standing in. And so she sees that I'm confident in what I say I trust in and believe in, because what I believe in is the truth. So, I think she was very upset about that. And then on top of that, the guy that was in the band, she had, I guess, like a crush on him, but he was like 20 years younger than her. And I thought that was really strange. Like, why are you trying to look at a guy that's like 20 years younger than you? It's really weird. But I didn't say nothing. I was just thought it was strange. She was irritated, and I told her about the girl in the front. I said, yeah, she's she knows him. That's her neighbor. So then she gets irritated with me. She wants to go home. So I want to go home. Yeah, I said, okay, no problem. I was looking at her, just observing her. I didn't sit back and say, why are you getting mad at me? No, I let you manifest. I don't stop you. So I went in the car with her, and the first thing she's saying, she's targeting her anger. I feel like what she did was she used that pretty fat girl that was there and targeted her anger towards her, because she really didn't want to tell me who she really was angry with. I mean, she tends to be a very jealous person, but I think she was mad because, I don't know. She was mad more with me, I think. And then she was a little frustrated with the guy up in the front. So I think it all started coming out already. That was just anger built up on top of anger. So then I said to her, she says, what? She's so fat. What's so pretty about her? The neighbor, right? Because I told her, I said, yeah, he had a lot of neighbors and stuff there. I met a lot of them on the floor when we were dancing. So, oh yeah, I know all of them. They're already on my page. I already know who they are. Like, more like trying to say, like, almost like kind of make it seem like, oh, I knew them before you. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, So I said, yeah, but they're cool. You're pretty cool people. And, the one girl, the pretty girl, oh, I don't see what people see in people that are fat. I said, what the hell? It was like she was trying to channel negativity around me because she couldn't stand the positivity and the light that was coming from me. And it's not my light, it's God's light. So that's what I'm sensing from her. I'm sitting there like, well, actually, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I corrected her. I said, so just a man ain't worrying about that. You don't have to be skinny to be beautiful. I said something. She didn't like it. And so, yeah, they ain't worried about that. That's exactly how I said it. So then I said, well, let's go home because I got to get back. I got some things to do. What are you doing tomorrow? Just, we'll take care of my wifely duties as always, my husband. But what are you doing? Like, she started demanding, like she wants to know what I'm doing exactly. I said, personal wifely things, personal marriage things. That's what we're doing tomorrow. Oh, she didn't like that. I said, honey, no, you ain't sitting here and pushing up on me and pushing up my boundaries. Okay. I am not young anymore. All right. I'm older now. Okay. So I'm not going to fall for that BS, So it came down to the point, right? One day she wanted to go over to her, I think it was her ex-boyfriend's house. He got a cat. And she calls me up. Now, this guy broke up with her. He didn't want nothing to do with her anymore. She asks me, hey, Candace, can you come over and bring me over to the house because I want to watch the cat. I want to see, I need to take care of him. I said, her name was, we'll say B. I said, I'm driving home from work. I got to get home. I got things to do. She knows that, So she's like, yeah, the cat, he has nowhere to go. I said, he'll be fine. I said, your ex-boyfriend, I said, he has a sister, doesn't he? She can watch the cat. Trust me. He don't need to bother you about that. Right? And she didn't like that I was setting my boundaries. I wasn't so yes with her anymore. And because I started realizing that people sometimes do things intentionally to disrupt. They know that you got plans and you got a schedule and they want to disrupt it. And some kind of a control issue. So I'm like, no, you're not going to do that to me. You're not going to get me to drive over there and take you over there near Pensacola and do all this stuff. No, we're not doing that. So I said, no, that's not your problem either. I said, it's not my problem. That's not your problem either. And that's what I told her. And she didn't like that. So then one day she calls me up and says, hey, we're going to go hang out at her ex-boyfriend's house to go watch the Beatles movie. And prior to her asking me, I know she was asking me about going to all these places. And I told her, I said, well, me and hubby are trying to save up for a car right now. And we got a lot going on. I have a nephew on the way, and there's all these things going on. My mom also was having her illness is starting up around that time. So there was a lot of stuff going on. But no matter what, I always kept my head up high because I have the Lord. So, I made that clear. And at the time, I was telling her about my MRI. And I had all those problems going on with the MRI thing. I didn't know if it was cancer yet or not. So, I'm telling her these things, and, she'll be like, oh, you need to get checked and stuff. I say, I will. I say, I leave it in the hands of God. I told her twice that. On top of the fact that I told her I'm trying to save up, I'm trying to get things done because me and hubby are trying to get a new car and everything like that. And my husband, this is like a year later, right? No, this was like a few months later, because it's still 2022. She seemed like every time you tell her something, you say, no, I can't do this, or no, I have to save up. Oh, I'm leaving this in the hands of God, this problem. I'm not even worrying about that right now, right? It seems like she'll ask the same questions over and over again. Even though you told her the answer, it was like she'll ask it again to irritate you. And that's when I started realizing she's trying to cross my boundaries. She's trying to irritate me and get under my skin. And I'm not letting her do that. So it got to a point where I stopped answering her questions after a while. I told you already, the MRI, that'll leave that in the hands of God. I ain't worrying about that. I told you, no, we're not going to make too many plans this year. Not right now, because I have a nephew on the way. And my mom is sick, and I need to be there to support her and all these different things. And she kept doing it over and over again. We go to her boyfriend's house, go to hang out over there, watching the Beatles movie, and I'm talking to him, right? The first thing she says when I walk into the house, she says, oh, Mike, you and Candace would make really good roommates. Yeah, Candace, you should live with Mike, right? It was like, why would you say that when I have a husband? And like, why are you acting like this? It's just strange. So I'm like, okay, well, she's saying I can move in with him. And I said, you know what Mike says? No, Candace will never leave her husband. And she said, you will never leave your husband? Really? Like, didn't I tell you that before? So you see the pattern here where she's playing this passive aggressive little cycle game with me. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I said, I love my husband. I'll never leave my husband. No. And she says, I don't understand that. I don't understand love. And that's when I start realizing she's jealous of the love that I have for my husband. She doesn't have that with anyone. So I sit back and I say to her, I say to her, yeah, I said, love is sacrificial. That's true love. And he tells us to sit down. And I remember talking to her ex-boyfriend because she wanted to go over there. I didn't want to go over there to watch a Beatles movie. She did. She told me, let's go over there. And I'm like, oh, okay. I said, are you sure? And then she was like, yeah, we're going over there. We're going to have some pizza. She didn't even ask me if I was okay with doing that. She just suddenly was like, we're going to do this. Right? Like, just like, let's go over there. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to be back at a certain time because my husband needs to use the car for tonight because I think he had wanted to go to the movies or something. And as we're watching the movie, right? He asks me about, what's going on with my mom. And, he asks about my MRI, right? And I said, yeah, things are going good. I said, right now, I don't know what's going on, but, I'm leaving it in the hands of God. I'm not even worrying about it, right? And you can see her getting irritated. And I felt the anger right there, even though, like, I don't know how to explain it. You felt it. Although she wasn't, like, showing the signs, like, I could feel it. It was strange, right? And I said, is it me or this woman is resenting me? Because her energy and her spirit is not with God. It's clashing with mine. So we can't walk together. And it was bothering me. So then she was listening in, and I noticed that she would try to take us off the topic and try to say, look at the Beatles movie. Yeah, let's watch the Beatles movie. And I'm like, we're talking, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm here. He's asking me a question. He invited me to to his home. We're here. So you better expect that we're going to all be having a conversation. So, I just continue to talk. I said, yeah. So he asked me, what do you plan on doing, right? And I told him, honestly, I really want to move. And I know she got annoyed with me one time because one time she asked when I was going to move into a house. And I said, I don't know, maybe another 5 years is in the hands of God. She got annoyed, right? I could tell by where she going, yeah. You could tell she's annoyed by the answer. So he asks me that question. He says to me, what do you plan on doing? I said, I would like to move, but I don't know yet. Hey, maybe we'll move to Florida or South Carolina. I don't really know right now. And she says, well, can I visit you? And I said, yeah. I mean, not all the time. That's what I told her. I said, but you can sometimes throughout the year, you can visit if I do move down there. I don't know yet. Like, we're just saying we don't know for sure. And it seemed like she was getting so annoyed that she couldn't figure my whereabouts, that there was no direct answers, and that I said that you can visit me sometimes, not all the time, because I'm putting boundaries, and she didn't like it. So then we go watch the movie, and we seen the Beatles, and it was in black and white, this film. I forgot the name of it. She says, oh, I would F that dude so hard, man. That guy right there, he is so good looking, right? And then she comes and turns over to me and said, which one would you screw, Candace? And I said, none of them. I wouldn't screw any of them because I'm not like that. I'm not that type of person. I'm not somebody who goes around, sleep around. I don't care if you're a superstar or you're Michael Jackson or if you're the Beatles or you're the Rolling Stones. I don't look at any man and say, well, I'm going to give my body to him. That's just not me. But if that's what you want to do, hey, I'm no judgment on me. Yes, that's your choice. You do what you want to do, right? So I just said, none of them. I ain't going to screw any of them. Why would I screw them? She got so angry. Like, her face was like, then I saw an anger in her. Right then and there. And I was like, why would she even ask me a question like that? Like, which one I'm going to screw? Like, I'm not going to screw none of them. You know I'm not that type of person. I don't screw people randomly. Like, that's not me. So, it's one thing to fantasize about something, but I ain't even fantasizing about them. Like, I'm not even looking at them. So, she was mad, right? So when we left the house, right, I go downstairs. We go into my car, and I felt the worst kind of energy. When I say it was just an angry spirit, it was angry. And she was in a car, and we were driving. I mean, I was driving her in my car, trying to take her back home. And I said, I got to get back because I have to get my husband. I said, we had a good time. I said, I don't know. I told her how I wanted to start making some changes and getting myself together. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to go to school yet. But I have to see. I don't know what I'm going to do yet in the near future. Talking about what I plan on doing. I mean, I have some ideas, but I don't know which way it's going to go. So then she says, Mike gets on my nerves so much. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, why should, I said, okay. What did he do? I said, he didn't say anything wrong. You know what I mean? If he's going to get on your nerves like that, then why invite me? Why go over there? Why invite me over there? As if you guys are cool. Because, see, you're the one that wanted to go over there and watch his cat. And I told you it's not your problem. And then you want to invite me over there for whatever reason. And then try to say, yeah, you maybe Candace will live with you. You guys make great roommates and all. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on? So I'm just sitting there like, okay. I was like, I don't understand why you're so annoyed with him. But you know what I think? I think she was really trying to channel that to me. I think really she was annoyed with me because it was after I said that, the whole thing with the Beatles guy. She got mad. So then she was like, she just like going like, yeah. And so, I was just talking. I said, so, it was a pretty good movie and stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, what is wrong with this woman? I could feel anger. And then she went just completely silent, right? Not like herself. And I felt this darkness around her, a dangerous, evil, like a feeling so bad in this world. I wanted to throw her out of my car. I wanted to throw this person out of my car so bad. I said, this is not my friend. This is an enemy who's manifesting. And I dropped, my husband calls us and I said, hello. I said, hey, yeah, I'm dropping what's his name off right now. I said, I'll be there soon. And I just felt an evil from her. I don't know how to explain. It bothered me so bad. I've never wanted to throw somebody out of my car so fast in my life. And I said, I'm getting her out of my car. And when she left, she was like, she gets out of the car. All right, you have a good night, okay? I said, you too. She closed the door. I looked at her, go upstairs. I said, I don't ever want to see her again. I said, I'll stay friends. We're on Facebook. You know, if she, maybe in a couple months, if she changes up or something, and you know, I don't feel that around her, maybe we'll hang out again, but I don't want to hang out with her no more. And the energy was so evil. I'm telling you, it was dark, like a demon. It was evil. And so I remember going on vacation with my sister. She started acting very strange. Very strange. She messages me while I'm in Baltimore. And the first thing she does is she's liking on only the picture of my sister, right? So I knew what she was trying to do. She was trying to get me to have a problem with my sister. See, the thing is that I don't think like that person. That person has a jealous, envious spirit. I don't. So you can't compare yourself to me when you're somebody who's jealous and you compare yourself to others. I don't. I don't need to compare myself with my sister. That's my baby sister. You know, I'll put her on a freaking pedestal and be happy about it. Be happy to see her move. She's a nurse and stuff. I'm so happy that she's gotten herself together. I could never sit there and wish bad on my sister. So she knows the love I have for my sister now, right? And how tight I am with her. I do anything for her, you know? So she goes and likes on it, sees that we're having a good family time together. She doesn't like on any of the photos of my nephews like she used to. So I already sees that she's throwing low blows at my nephews. She doesn't like on any photos with me, but she'll like on one photo with my sister on it. It says, "Your sister is so beautiful." She texts me, right? I said, she is weird. I said, she is weird. She goes and texts me, "Yeah, your sister's so beautiful." I said, "Oh, thank you." And that's exactly what I said. She's weird. I told my sister, she's like, "Yeah, tell her hi." And, you know, like she's over there studying to become a nurse. So I said, "Yeah, my sister said hi." I told her, "You say she was really pretty and beautiful." I said, "She said thank you." I said, "Right now she's studying to become a nurse right now. She's like doing her stuff right now because you're inquiring about her. So I'm just telling you a little bit more about her, right?" Oh, she's like, "Well, guess what? My cousin, my niece is she's going to college too, and she's becoming something too." And I said, "That's great, and I'm glad that she is." I said, "Because she's still young. She could take up 2 majors if she wanted to right now because she's young." I said, "You know, I hope she's the best for her, you know." So, needless to say, out of nowhere, she says, "What about your MRI?" Just out of nowhere, right? She goes from talking about my sister's beautiful to competing with my sister by using her niece and saying, "Well, she's going to be going to college too, and she's doing this and this and this and that." I'm like, what the hell is going on with you? Then out of nowhere, she goes out, just changes the subject. "What about your MRI?" After I said 3 times twice to her and in front of her with her ex-boyfriend saying, "I leave that in the hands of God." She knows the answer to that. So I said, "Oh, I know what game she's playing. This is the devil here." So I said, "This is the spirit behind my friend." Well, my frenemy, who I thought was my friend. But she was manifested. And now I see why I felt what I felt around her all these years. And I kept trying to make excuses. But I realized, no, I knew what I was feeling. And it just manifested. And when you set those boundaries, that's when the masks start to fall off, because now their agenda, things that they want to work around you, ain't going to work. So I said to her, "I already told you, I'm going to leave that in the hands of God. I ain't worrying about that." And she out of nowhere says, "What is so great in Baltimore that you and your family keeps going out there? What's so great out there that you and your family keep visiting out there?" I said, "It's not about the place. It's about the time with the family. It's about the experience." And I love time with my family. I kept it so positive. I said, this woman is not going to sit here and lower me down to any kind of level. So, she says, "Yeah." Like she just says, "Yep." Like more like, "Oh, well, whatever. I'm not going to say goodbye. I'm not going to say nothing. You know, I'm just, you know, going to, you know." So I said, "You know what?" I told my sister and said, "Mm-mm." I told my coworker, Jen, she saw that message, cut off. That ain't your friend. She says, cut it off. She said, "That's not your friend." And that's the second friend, actually, that she showed me the truth about, that she helped assist me and give me some good advice on. I said, "Mm-mm." I said, "You know what? I know what she's trying to do." She says, "Yeah, she's trying to manipulate you. She's not, you know, She's trying to put negative seeds in you, plant doubt in you, and it's not going to work. And that's why I put that video of me on the boat with my sister and the two nephews on the shorts video. Because I put that same video on Facebook to show her, like, no, you didn't ruin my light, and you're not going to dim it either. And everything is going to be all right. So I'm sitting there, I'm enjoying myself. I ain't worrying about no MRIs. I'm not worrying about none of that. I'm not going to sit here and let you make me go against my sister because you think like, oh, let me get Candace to compete against her sister and tell her she's prettier than her. I don't care. You can say she's the prettiest out of all things and I'm ugly. I will not resent my sister for that. Never. That's somebody that I stick with to the T. I'll hurt somebody that mess with my sister, So her kids are like my kids. And, and you mess with them, that's it, So the thing is that she thought she was going to plant seeds of doubt and ruin my vacation and try to get me to have some problems with my sister because she was, unfortunately, she was jealous of my relationship with her too. Why are you always going there watching your nephews? Well, those are my nephews, so don't that's one thing you don't start talking about. It's like, the same thing with a past friend of mine. They one day tried to say something about my nephews. You're not their mother, because I said I miss them, and I said, excuse me, those are mine. I corrected her real quick, and that was when I was young and really passive. And I was like, something came out of me that, whoa, don't mess with my nephews. Those are my babies too. Don't ever tell me they're not mine. They are mine. They are biologically mine. I'm their biological aunt. Thank you. And I helped raise them. And in those beginning years, I was always there, and I always picked them up and take them places. So yeah, they are mine. And I looked at her. I said, don't you ever don't mess around my nephews. So same thing with her. I said, oh no, my nephews, I enjoy taking them. They may be running around. I'd be stressed, but I love them dearly. Those are my nephews, and I will do anything for them. So it seemed like she had a jealousy about that too. So I started seeing the behavior she was displaying to those past other friends, and now it was coming to me. And I started realizing, and I said, she's doing this to probably everybody around her. And she probably just hangs out with people that are convenient for her. And when she can't pass the boundaries with them, she starts to resent them. And when I grew in my relationship with God, she really had a problem with me. So that right there really blew off her true self off to me. Her true self came out that day. But she was just, whew. I felt so much evil from her. And I went out and still enjoyed my vacation. I came back. I said, I will not message her again. She has to message me. I waited 2 weeks. Not like her. She goes and messages me, hey, Candace, I've been doing good. How about you? Yeah, I've been going over to Mike's house. Her ex-boyfriend. I've been watching the cat. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's nice. I'm glad that everything's going well with you guys. That's exactly how I responded. I didn't say anything else. I'm not going to beg for your attention. I'm not going to sit here and say, I want to be your friend. I don't understand. We've been friends for 13 years. No, bitch. You're not my friend. And you're going to realize that I am not that desperate. And I'm not going to bow down to nobody. I don't care if I'm down to 0 friends. I don't bow down to no one. You treat me how you want to be treated. I treat you with love and respect. You better treat me the same, because I will cut you off. Because she was my friend for 13 years, I didn't cut her off so quick. I distanced myself. And I said, I want to see how things go from here. But I will not beg for your love or attention. So this is what happened. So after that, she never messaged me again. I said, okay, she must not want to be my friend no more. That's okay. I'll wait on her. Halloween comes around. I'll go upstairs real quick. Halloween comes around. Go upstairs. I won't be on for too long because I've been on here for an hour, and I do need to do some things around this house. And I want to do my hair and stuff like that. Oh, he went in the room. Good. So, let me make some coffee. Halloween comes around. My hair is a mess now. It's all in afro. Well, these are in twisties. I got to do them today. Holidays come, and I wrote a post on Facebook.
And now this time I told my mother-in-law, I said, I don't want to celebrate Halloween anymore, because of my relationship with God and the convictions I've been getting. And, I want to start doing better as a child of God, right? Not celebrating demonic holidays. And I still have mixed emotions about Christmas. I still wonder, should I even be celebrating that? And I got rid of the tree completely because I found out what it's associated with. So long story short, so I posted, I don't want to celebrate Halloween. I put a video about what the history of it is behind. It's very demonic. You know what I mean? It deals with witchcraft and goblins and evil and spirits and demons. And it's the most demonic holiday. That's the holiday for Satanists. They love when Christians celebrate the holiday, right? And they, um, you know, they do seances. That's the most murders probably happen that night. They do a lot of sacrifices, a lot of satanic weddings on that day. There's a lot of demonic activity going on that day. So I said, I do not want to celebrate this holiday again. I'm putting an end to it. She comes on there. Doesn't say, hey, Candace, how you doing? I miss you or anything like that. Oh, man, it's been too long. Where have you been, girl? I missed you, something normal, right? You would think that that's what normal people do. Oh, no, she comes on there. So you're not going to take your nephews out trick-or-treating anymore? Who you been listening to? Blah, blah, blah. Who you been talking to? And I said, I haven't been listening to anybody. I said, but I wasn't accepting it. And I didn't want to accept it. I was, when you know something, but you don't want to accept it, you're in denial. That's exactly what I was doing all these years. I was in denial. I was trying to have fun and be with the world, have a good time. But deep down, I always knew this was an evil holiday, and I kept making excuses. I said, I've always known this is nothing new. No one told me anything. I have God to tell me things, right? Like I'm along those lines, like God is who tells me and shows me this is evil. So guess what? All these people came on the platform and they agreed with me. All the Christian brothers, sisters, they all came in there. Jen, my coworker, Cluta, came on there. Everybody supported me in my claim. They're like, yeah, that's a very bad holiday. And that day I go to my church and we just do like fun activities for the kids. And they was like, yeah, that's blah, blah, blah. Yep, girl, you right. Everybody was agreeing with me. She shut her down. She was just sitting there like quiet. She didn't even have nothing else to say. I said, oh, and you being my friend, I'm thinking to myself, like her being my friend. That's the first comment you say after 2 months. Really? So then I knew, I said, I think I know what direction I need to go. This is not my friend. You can tell, and this is the thing, you can tell when someone loves you. You can tell when somebody wants to be around you. You can tell when someone likes you or when they dislike you. It's not that hard. It's by their fruits. Someone says, I love you and I care about you, but they're always talking about you. They're always talking about your money, your finances, and they're jealous of you. And they're saying, I'm not jealous of her. I'm just saying, she's always flashing her stuff. And you're like, what do you mean she's flashing her stuff? That's just her house. She's allowed to have a nice, pretty house. Are you her friend? Yeah, I've been friends with her for 10 years. Oh, well, maybe you're not her friend. I could tell by your fruits. The Bible says you know them by their fruits. So you can tell when someone likes you and they don't like you. And when they resent you. So I knew that's not my friend. I said, this is not my friend. Maybe at one point she was, when I was beneficial for her, when she was comfortable around me. But now that she's not comfortable around me because my very presence makes her question everything around her, she resents me. So the Bible says, it's Amos 3:3, how can two walk together unless they be agreed? And that's something I always think about. I can't walk with her because we're not spiritually aligned. We don't walk together on the same path, and nor does she respect my path, the path of truth, while she walks in the path of lies. So it was amazing how my discernment of her started manifesting. And I remember praying about revealing who my true friends were. And it's just amazing how God makes masks fall off. And so it got to the point where I said, where the holidays came, she messaged me and she was like, what happened to our friendship? Like trying to be manipulative and trying to play this game with me. And I said, oh no, she ain't going to do this time. You know what? She's going to get a farewell letter from me. And I wrote her a message, and I said, it made the name made it so like proper and formal. I told her we had some great times together, but I'm on a whole nother path now. And there's a lot of changes going on in my life. And I'm sure she knew where I was going at, that we're just not aligned anymore. And I told her, I said, don't take this as a personal, but take this as a time to invest in yourself. And I put a big heart at the end, because you really do. You need to work on yourself. You need to find yourself. But this relationship, it's no longer alive anymore. It's been put to the grave. It's ran its course. And I realized that we can never be friends again. So I told her, I said, we can still talk on Facebook if you like. And the only reason why I said that is, I could be pretty cruel. Okay. I can cut you off on cold turkey if you do me wrong. But her, I made an exception only because I'd known her for so long. And I really did care about her and still do. But I just knew, like, I can't do this anymore. And it was right. And I never regretted my decision. I told her, I said, we can talk on there. I said, but if you don't want to even be friends with me on there, you have a choice to delete me. And I will respect it. And that's exactly what I told her. So she automatically goes, puts on a message. Is it because of our beliefs that we can't be friends no more? I don't understand. And no, it's bigger than that. It's our mindset. It's our walk. We're not together. The resentment, the anger, the issues, I seen it all. It was just manifesting. And then I ended up giving her that option. She deletes me off Facebook. And I was actually happy when she did, because it made my job easier. I said, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that she did delete me. But guess what? And she tried to friend request me back on Facebook on my anniversary over those next 2 years. Always on my anniversary. And I don't know what it was. Why around that time? It was almost like she wanted to be in on what was going on with my life with my husband. And I deleted her. Her phone number, she started playing mind games. And I think it was the following year, a year later. And she was like, yeah, she told me this. She sent me a text message. She told me this. So what the hell is this? Then she writes another message to me. And I told her that. And I showed my mother. My mom said, she's trying to play games with you. She wants you to think that she's gossiping about you. And she wants you to give her that attention. And you know what I said? I'm done. I said, You know what? She ain't going to be able to message me no more, because now she's going to get a final block on the cell phone now, where she cannot message me. And that's what I did. On Facebook, every time she sent me, like those 2 years when she sent those friend requests around my anniversary so she could be in my business, I blocked it after that the second time, right? I just deleted it. Then my coworker, I think it was the year 2024, I believe. She says, Candace, did you know your friend was practicing mantra? And I said, what? And I said, oh my gosh, because what happened was her family members were still on my page on Facebook. Yeah. And I had a picture where I looked like my stomach was bloated out. So maybe I looked pregnant or something. Right after that picture, I get a message from her, right? Saying, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I got a message from her saying, so did you have the baby yet? I said, what? What is going on? I'm like, no, like, hey, I haven't seen you in 2 years, Candace. How's everything going? It's an automatic, so did you have the baby yet? And I'm like, oh no. Mm-mm. And I showed Jen the message. It was on my cell phone. Now that I'm remembering, that's when I blocked her on my cell phone. I'm thinking it was the first time. And I know, sorry about that. The first time she wrote the message to me, she was making it seem like she was gossiping about me. I just deleted the message altogether, never responded. I remember now. It was the second time I blocked her on my cell phone. So the second time she wrote, so did you have a baby yet? Is when I blocked her. That's what that made me say I'm gonna block her off my cell phone because that freaked me out. So, and my coworker, I wanted to know her input. And she said that when she looked on her Facebook, she was practicing mantra. Not only did I block her off of my cell phone, I blocked it on Facebook where she could never send me a friend request again unless she goes under like a dummy account. And see, my Facebook settings are on really high settings where you just can't see my pictures. I think the last picture you see is from 2016. I don't think there's any other picture you can see after that. So I was like, I don't want this woman near me. And I think her family members said something about that picture where I looked like I was pregnant because I was eating a lot of food that day. I get bloated sometimes. So I'm like, why is she asking if I had a baby yet? And then you're doing mantra in your backyard and doing all these weird stuff, heebie-jeebie shit. No, I wonder if you even ever left witchcraft. You probably lied to me all these years and was doing witchcraft all this time. So, it makes you start questioning things because I was getting attacked by spirits while I was her friend. So who's to say that her spirit wasn't coming home to me? So, I'm like, no, I don't need this. So I blocked her where she couldn't even send me a friend request on my anniversary no more. Because what I did the few times, I just kept denying her requests. I didn't block her. I just denied her requests. Then it got to a point where I said, I don't even want her to send me a friend request. I'm just going to block her where she can never send me a friend request again. I'm blocking her cell phone number after this. And that's it. I don't want to ever talk to her again. I don't even want her to send me a message. I don't want no association. When I saw that thing in her backyard and what she's doing back there and those rituals, we done. EBGB thing. I said, we're not doing that. So I think she was trying to put a curse, maybe like trying to do a spell, but that don't work. You can't put a curse on one that is anointed by God. You can't put curses on his anointed, those who have his spirit inside of them. You can't. Demons can't possess you when you have the spirit of God. They can oppress you if you open doors to demonic realms, like bother you and stuff, but they can't possess you. Your Christ is your God. So I've been attacked by many spirits, but they can't take my body. They can try to play games with me. I can hear them or something, but that's it. But I haven't had problems with spirits in like a long time. Like it's been a good couple of years now. Like if I do, it's every once in the blue moon. It's decreased so much. I'm so happy. Like I don't have problems like that anymore. And it's crazy that when I got rid of her, all out of the woodworks, these spirits were coming and trying to attack me. At the same time that I stopped being friends with her. It was just the weirdest thing. And so that's why I say, like, everything around us is spiritual. This is what the Bible says. We're not wrestling against flesh and blood. We're wrestling against wicked principalities and spirits. And that's what happened. But guess what? The more I grew with my relationship, that started going out the door. I don't have spirits come and attack me like that anymore. It's been years since I've really had a demonic attack. Like I may hear things like every once in a blue moon or something just not right, or, it's rare now. Like it's like every once a blue moon is something there. I don't have them like that anymore because I've grown my relationship with God and I cut off the bad people that have these spirits around them. Because everything around them starts attaching themselves to you. And that's what that's what people don't realize. See, this sounds crazy to the normal population. You'll sit down like, this is crazy. This is nutty. I don't believe this. I don't expect you to believe it, but it is true. And so I don't have problems like that anymore. I'm glad, I mean, when I was friends with her, there had more demonic activity going on, and around certain people. And her friend, her ex-boyfriend, now she was friends with, the other one, she had one, was a warlock. And I'll never forget that. And that really bothered me too. So, I'm glad he's not on my page. I'm glad I cut her off. I'm glad I cut her aunt off because her aunt was a witch. And that was another thing. And she was on my page. And that was another thing that said, I want to cut her off. Because I'm going to get rid of all of them one by one. I'll tell you, in a way, I wanted them to hear the gospel. So because I know I was putting videos on Facebook about Jesus. So I was like, they need to hear this because there's a couple of witches on there that need to hear about Jesus. And her aunt was one of them. Witchcraft. So it was her. I have another person that's on there that named Chrissy. She's, Wicca, whatever. and I'm not friends with her like that, but she's on there, and I put videos about Christ. But I cut off her aunt in them because I felt like they had intentions to start trouble and to be trying to go back and report what's going on with me to her. And I just don't want her spirits coming here and, having any kind of form of connection. Like I said, they cannot possess my body, but they can try to play games. And I don't want any kind of connection with that. So, I'm done with that. Those things are going, they're not in my house, and I just don't want them here, So, yeah, her aunt, they were into that heavily. And I'm like, I don't want to be around that. But I was glad to be able to see that they heard the gospel. And her aunt, when I mentioned about Billy Graham on Facebook, she came in and says, take that down, right? Because she's the witch. I think she's the one that's the witch. Take that down, And I said, no, I will never do that. I said, I love God. And I said something. I was so happy. I stand across that woman. I said, no, I love God. I said, I won't be ashamed. Like I was making it clear, I will not be ashamed of my God, and I will follow him, and I will keep this video up. If you're a witch and you don't like the truth, that's on you. At least the gospel will spread to you. So that's why I said it's a whole nother thing. It'll be a whole nother novel after it. Like you would take a whole true story novel to talk about that part of her and her family with the spirits and all that stuff. But it was crazy. Like, I felt so much at peace after that. I feel like a big ton of bricks and a burden was lifted off of me after I stopped being friends with her. And that's why I'm glad I never told her about my page here. I'm so glad I never did. Because something at the time back then said to me, Candace, don't tell her about this. It was like an uneasy, uncomfortable feeling came across my heart. And it says, don't tell her. And I didn't know why. But now I understand. Because imagine me cutting her off and now she can come on here and know my whereabouts, where I'm doing. So I'm seeing my mom or I'm going somewhere. She's going to have access to my life. And I don't want that kind of person having access to my life. Especially when I've been with them, been personal with them. And, let's say I go to a restaurant that, like I said, that she's familiar with, that she could see the post behind it. Because, there's certain pictures in certain restaurants and they can see like what it is that's at Molly Holly's restaurant. I know where that is. She goes there a lot now. Let me go over there. No, I don't want nothing to do with that person. That person gave me a darkness and I felt it. And then I wanted to throw him out of my car. And now I see why. And when Jen, my coworker, showed me that, I said, oh, now I see. And it's like, she got some serious demons behind her. So there's some evil behind her. And, I was just glad that I made the decision that I made. But yeah, that's the way I could summarize all of that. And how, when I listened to that video earlier from Cassandra Mack, how I relate to that video, because like I had the discernment. I felt off about a lot of things about particular people in my life. But I just didn't know why I felt the way I felt until the very end. Like they manifested themselves. And then I'm like, wow, what I was feeling was real. I'll tell you this a lot of times, and you know who told me this? Queen Bee, if you're watching, I remember you told me this. You said, did you set boundaries from the beginning? And I said, no. You said, that's where you went wrong. You must set boundaries with people in the beginning because a lot of times people show themselves quicker than usual. A lot of times they see who you really are. They see that when you set boundaries, their masks fall off quicker than ever. If I had set boundaries from the beginning in that relationship, I would have seen that person be sooner than later. It wouldn't. That relationship probably would not lasted 13 years. You know what I mean? It probably more like 5 years because I've been like, okay, I see who this person really is. I'm not dragging this relationship any much further. Not only did I have that experience with her, I've had that with many other people. Not everybody. There's some friends that I still talk to that are good, that I've never had that feeling with around, because I know that they mean well. But there were people I've met where, they did nice things for me. They said they loved me. They said they cared about me over the years. And I thought they really were for me. And then I come to find out they really were not for me, because their fruits, their outcomes, they've exposed themselves. And I started realizing these are not my friends. These are my frenemies. At this point, I'm not even shocked anymore when I do see a frenemy. I'm just more like I'm waiting for them to manifest. I'm waiting for them to manifest. It's kind of like what happened to me last year. I had a situation I've mentioned before. Now, this is online here on YouTube, where I saw a mist of people who exposed themselves. And I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was observe. And then I realized, I said, yeah, those are frenemies too. Because I'll tell you, anybody who discusses me amongst the midst of my enemies, or they have a problem with my walk with God or my changes, they are not my friend. Anybody who sits there and makes up lies about my life, who said they loved me and cared about me, twists things up, they were never my friend. They sit back and try to bring issues to you when you told them to set boundaries, and they go against it because they have a perversion to bring evil to you and darkness and problems. That's not your friend. And that's just, so I'm not really surprised anymore. If anything, I'm just happy to see people's masks fall off over the years. And so it saves me time, it saves me my peace of mind, because it's like, okay, well, I'm not mad. If anything, I'm just glad that they've been exposed. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I made the decision I made. I'm not saying I'll be rude to somebody. If I see certain people come around, I may not say nothing to them at all, or I may say, hey, good evening or good morning, and that's it. I will never get personal with them again, because I understand what spirit they're operating from. They're not operating from a good spirit. And their intentions are not good intentions. So, that's where it all comes from, discernment. When you feel something is just not right, you got to look into it, But I already knew. It's just I was waiting for something to manifest, more signs, something to show me confirmation of what I already knew about a lot of people that I was around at one point. And I got my answer. So it's like, good, makes me happy to be able to be like, I know that what I felt was true. So, I'm very glad about that. So now, on here, I enjoy doing these topics where, I get things out, I talk about God, or I talk about life situations, or I talk about things I relate to and things that other people relate to. But like as far as chat rooms are concerned, I don't have that kind of joy that I used to have with it anymore. And I think it's because, one, I do love a lot of time to myself, but also when I do speak with people, I just feel like a lot of times the things that I want and the things they want to talk about, it just doesn't align. We don't align, we don't relate. And I just feel like more than half of the time it always ends up with drama. I just feel like it'll just, the whole personality clashes everywhere and there's drama everywhere. And I just don't feel like dealing with that anymore. Or there's fake people that I've already saw last year, and they want to come around, and you're like, I already know that they're fake, but I don't say anything. I was more like, oh, hi, or I just don't say nothing to them at all, because I know they're fake. They're not really for you. They're just people who are looking for drama. Wells without water. They're just thirsty for drama, looking for a hype, They looking for something to excite them. They don't know peace. And when they see somebody walks in peace, they don't understand. It disturbs them. And it always gives me back to what the Bible says. that darkness can't comprehend the light, that it hates the light. So it's something we have to remember. When you're walking in light and people walking in darkness, you cannot walk together. It already said in Amos 3:3, it says, how can two walk together unless they be agreed? You can't. They don't combine, they don't mix. Just like oil and vinegar don't mix, light and darkness don't mix. So I'm going to get going. I want to do some things. I got to do some laundry. I'm going to eat. And I probably going to go ahead and do my hair and do my makeup and stuff, get all beautified up. I want to wear my dress on, even though it's a rainy day out. I just want to feel good today. And I think I may do a Bible study sometime later today, a little later. It's going to be about don't answer fools to your folly. And how about Jesus, how wise, how our Lord and his wisdom, and how his wisdom shut people down. And, when they were trying to test God, it didn't work, okay? It didn't work. Jesus is great, our Lord. So, yeah, so I'll see. I want to do that. It won't be a very long Bible study, but I do want to read some scriptures on it, and maybe today, if EQ is up for it, I don't know what he's doing today. I know it's Memorial Day, so he may have time with his family, so I don't want to take that away. But if he's free and he wants to have a stream or whatever, I'm all up for it for a good hour or so before bedtime. So, we'll see. I'll see what the day brings. Take care, everybody. If you're Memorial Day weekend, eat some good grilled hamburgers and hot dogs, cheat today. And then, that's what I did. I cheated it over this weekend, and then I'm going to go right on my strict diet. But God bless everybody, and bye-bye. Take care.